Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, out in cinemas now, the spin off to the successful blockbuster series. Quick premise of the film. So, Vanessa Kirby plays the sister of Jason Statham, who we met several movies ago, and she's an agent of MI6. Her unit tries to retrieve some kind of deadly virus, but the mission goes wrong. They get stopped by Idris Elba, who apparently is a mix between Winter Soldier and Iron Man. Dude blocks bullets with his hands, punches holes through walls, and he has targeting systems in his electronic eyes. This is not a joke, by the way. This all happens in the first 5 minutes of the film. Vanessa, in a moment of desperation, injects the virus into herself and runs away with it. And the way it works is that it is stored in some kind of capsules, and after exactly 72 hours, they break down and she'll be infected, and then she'll begin infecting others, and the whole world will die. Nonsense. So anyway, she needs to find a way to either extract the virus from her body or someone who will just kill her and burn the body. Meanwhile, Idris Elba is of course chasing her to extract the virus back for himself, because his organization plans world domination and the evolution of man, and stop it, it doesn't make any sense. The point is, Statham and The Rock have to team up and help Vanessa Kirby, and they fight Black Superman. That's the gist of it. Now, my relationship with the Fast and Furious series is a weird one. I used to look down on it and laugh about those films from the sidelines without having actually seen any of them. They always looked too dumb and for my liking, just from the trailers and opinions of others alone. But then I saw the trailer to this film, and it looked so ridiculous that I knew I wanted to see it, and so I did a marathon of all the previous ones. And I found the first couple to be, rather weak, but then around number 5, the series started picking up the pace, because it started embracing the ridiculous, over-the-top action over staying true to reality. And as the movies became more silly, they also became more and more enjoyable. I think ultimately that's the key part of the success of Fast and Furious, is that they gradually stopped pulling back and just went all in on those brainless, crazy set pieces, which are genuinely fun to watch, where you know that the laws of physics and any semblance of reason went out the window a long time ago, but you don't care in the slightest because it's just so fun. The last one, number 8, was probably my favorite, and the two best things about it for me were the action and the chemistry between Jason Statham and The Rock. So now with the offspin focusing on those two characters, I knew it can be even better. And okay, the same components are still the best parts of this movie. The set pieces are bonkers, and the fight scenes are alright, and the action works. The constant bickering and banter between Statham and Rock is still quite fun, and whenever they're both in a scene interacting with each other, it's quite fun to see. However, both of those elements, I think, were done better in the previous film. In terms of action, you may remember that Fate of the Furious, the 8th film, had that insane sequence at the end with a nuclear submarine chasing cars on ice and Vin Diesel kicking torpedoes around. Here we also have some crazy stuff, like cars drifting underneath two passing trucks at the same time, and exploding buildings, and The Rock dragging down a helicopter with his bare hands, Captain America style. But it feels smaller in scope and scale. It's just not as spectacularly insane as we now know it can be. I expected the movie to try and beat the previous one, to be even more over the top, as is tradition in the series. But it actually felt like the crazy was dialed back a little bit, or maybe not even just a little bit, but a lot. And that's bad, because Fast and Furious works best when it leans into that insanity. And there's also the slightly annoying thing about the third act, which takes place on Samoa, which is clearly only set there as an ego stroke for The Rock. And as for the chemistry between the two leads, as I said, I still quite enjoyed it when they're interacting and throwing out those maximum cheesy one-liners at each other, even if this time around some of the scenes don't make sense from the story standpoint. But the thing is, and this goes both for action sequences and the banter, is that there's less of it than there could have been expected. I'd say that the trailer already showed most, if not all of the good stuff. And if you took all the action and the banter scenes together and just put them together, it could be boiled down to probably about 20-25 minutes. And the rest of it is just filler. and it's not that good. Yeah, someone will immediately go and say, "Oh, but you can't do an action film with just action and zero exposition. You need some story as well." Well, Mad Max Fury Road and John Wick are great examples that you can actually do it. Nonetheless, I wanted to say what specifically were my problems with the rest of Hobbs and Shaw. So first off, the story makes zero sense whatsoever. Now that is to be expected in this series. It's kind of a staple of it. But as long as you can just wave it off quickly and focus on the meat of the film, it shouldn't matter. But here we've got multiple exposition dumps, scenes where characters are just explaining the nonsensical plot to us. So it slows the movie down. It doesn't make sense anyway. It's stupid. Just drop it, please. Worst offender is probably Idris Elba and his 6 different monologues about evolution of mankind and eliminating the weak and the new world order coming. Shut the fuck up and just start exploding stuff. Then, apart from even the exposition, there's a massive amount of time that we spend on scenes which don't necessarily move the plot forward, but are also not very funny and are somewhat serious, like The Rock's interactions with his daughter and exploring the past of Jason Statham and his sister, and The Rock's Samoan family and all that jazz. I feel the film tried to give itself some depth, some emotional core, where there's actually no need for it, and it failed miserably. Then you have Vanessa Kirby, who is jaw-droppingly gorgeous, but unfortunately shows the acting talent and charisma of a table. She's not charming, she's not interesting, she's just not a good screen presence. I mean, put it this way, whenever she opens her mouth, she immediately gets less attractive. So that says a lot. That's a shame because she's the sister of one protagonist, and to the other one, The Rock, he is clearly attracted to her. So I think she could have been an interesting, she could have been used better as this interesting foil to both of them. And it's hard to say for me if the problem was specifically the actress because I haven't really seen any of her other films. Maybe it was just the director who told her to be as wooden as possible and dragged her down, but the result is awful nonetheless. Then we have the ending, which is totally weird because there's this huge set piece, or actually 3 different set pieces strung together after one another in one massive action sequence, which doesn't slow down. Which, by the way, also makes no sense from the timeline perspective because we start at night just before dawn, and then seemingly at the end it's sunset again, so the whole day has passed, but we know that in the story actually only about half an hour has passed because there's a device related to the virus which ticks down the time and it's shown on the screen multiple times. So it doesn't make sense again. And then you have this set piece and then it just ends and all of a sudden credits start rolling and there's not really even a piece of dialogue to inform us how the story was wrapped. Instead we just see a couple of short scenes over the credits, and then after them there's such a clunky and weird scene that sets up a sequel. I mean, it's literally just a character calling The Rock on the phone and explaining that the previous virus is safe, but there's a new one which is more dangerous and they have to stop it now. I don't even know if this was meant to be a joke or for real, but I was totally confused because it was just so blatant and heavy-handed. I mean, I don't know. To wrap all of this up somehow, I think that the movie is kind of a kryptonite for me personally, because what I enjoy doing with movies is I enjoy breaking down the film and the specific scenes. I love looking for details about them. But here you can take literally any scene at all, any of them. And if you start breaking it down, you'll just have a brain aneurysm. That's how little sense they make. So in any way, it's kind of an exercise for me of being able to shut down my brain for 2 hours. And in that way, it kind of works. There are good elements to the film. There are some scenes which were enjoyable. There is fun to be had. But to my liking, there's just too little of it. And the result is a whole lot of disappointment.